Hello everyone, I am Alex and I'm very glad to meet you. I hope you will join me today for a very short trip to the center of Seoul, where we will look at something that I call a hidden heritage. So, what do I mean by hidden heritage? Let's check out. So, when I say hidden heritage, I'm thinking of a place or a building that has quite great historical importance, but because there are not enough awareness raising features around it, people simply pass by without knowing how important this place is. One such place is the Tapgol Park or Pagoda Park. The Pagoda Park is in the very heart of Seoul, just near the Insadong tourist street and the Cheongmyo shrine. If an overseas tourist passes by, this place will strike him as a kind of popular meeting spot of the elderly population who are playing paduk, drinking makgeolli, or just discuss things among themselves. Also, a lot of the urban poor or homeless people are gathering nearby this park. Overall, it kind of looks like a forgotten piece of the nearby past in a city which is developing very, very fast. Before I even start, I would like to establish that our tour will be built around three phrases. These are Buddhism, Modernity, and Nation. Shall we see how these three words relate to the Pagoda Park? Let's start with the keyword Buddhism. This is a very basic one, as we need to talk about Buddhism if we want to explain why this park is called Pagoda Park. Let me throw the question out there. You know what a pagoda is? The pagoda is a Buddhist structure, the role of which is to keep a Buddhist relic called sarira. This relic is believed to be a little stone that remains after a body of a Buddhist saint is cremated or burned by fire. Buddhists have great respect to these saints and as such great respect to the relics that remain after them, so they felt they had to keep them in a special protective place, and this is the pagoda. It's a structure that looks like a tower and they are very different in size. Some pagodas can be quite small while others are as high as a tower. In Korea, 7 or 9 story pagodas were quite widespread. The stone pagoda that gave name to this park has 10 stories. It is still standing in the back of the park. Actually, this is the only part of the Buddhist temple that was here that is still remaining until these days. This was a temple called Wongaksa, and it was established during the reign of King Sejong. Okay, then what happened with this temple? Well, Sanggun's reign is what happened. As you all know, Sanggun was infamous for a whole lot of things. One of these was his hobby to play with kisang, female entertainers. He destroyed the temple. In 1504, he basically reformed the temple to be a kisang house named Yonbangbon for his own parties. His successor, King Chungjong, used the space for government offices for a brief while. The temple building itself disappeared when the Ministry of Taxation asked Chungjong for approval to use the wooden parts of this temple for repairing other important government buildings. As the king allowed it, the temple buildings disappeared. So okay, now you get why is it a pagoda, but what remains is to find out how did this become a park. This is what brings us to the second keyword, modernity. As you probably all know, in the second half of the 19th century, Europe and the US were considered to be the most technologically advanced cultures on the world. This meant that if a country wished to modernize, they kind of had to accept Western technological advances, such as modern weapons, electricity vehicles. Ko Jong was very active to secure these innovations for Korea. He even had a personal advisor from Europe. It was a British, or like by origin Scottish, guy, John McLevy Brown. It was Brown who, in 1895, proposed the construction of a modern park in Seoul. This was none other than the Pagoda Park, the first ever Western-style urban park in Korea. The last keyword I mentioned was nation. Let's see how does this fit the picture. In the beginning of the colonial period, as the Japanese Empire gradually took over Korea, the first reaction from the Korean side was not violent. It seems the national leaders wanted to address the Japanese government directly about the issues of Korean independence. When the leaders of the Korean independence movement met at the Daehwagwan restaurant, they signed the Declaration of Independence. They notified the Japanese government general, and they were soon imprisoned. The whole point of the meeting was to avoid possible clashes and communicate their message in a diplomatic way. However, it was not in Daehwagwan, but in the Tapgol Park, where the independence activity actually became a people's movement. A man named Chung Cheong read the declaration aloud in the park, and in short time, large crowds gathered, loudly protesting the Japanese suppression of Korean independence. This is how the March 1st movement started. Leaders of different religions played very important role in this movement. Consisted of 2 Buddhist members, 16 representatives of Christianity, and 15 members of Chondogyo. Yeah, that's a very, very important religion in this period. The leader of this religion, Son Byung-hee, is the gentleman whose statue you will see as soon as you enter the main gate of the park. Why did he get so much attention compared to other religious leaders from these representatives? Well, while all religious communities actively participated in Korean independence movement, the representatives of Chondogyo did extra steps for both the national spirit and the modernization of Korea. They supported schools and education and published magazines as well. These magazines were important not only for dissipating news about Korean independence activity. They were specialized papers for certain groups of people in the society. You had magazines about the independence movement itself, as well as magazines for women, for students, and for teenagers. These were kind of social groups which were never really addressed during the late Joseon dynasty. As such, creating magazines that in detail talked about their issues was a very modern approach to a society which still had strong Confucian hold on it. And it mirrored the Chondogyo's main idea that everyone under the heaven is equal. The Chondogyo used to be an immensely popular religion at the time, but the ratio of their followers rapidly dropped by now. However, you can still visit their central cathedral, which is located slightly to the north of Tapgol Park. One of the reasons why I consider the Tapgol Park a hidden heritage is that despite these cultural roles it played, there is simply not enough well-visible English information for tourists that would describe the importance of each of these events and cultural features. I think it is our role to raise awareness about this place as an important symbol of Korean identity. Thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!